Warning: important information. All video stories presented here are created solely for informational purposes. The content within these videos is intended to inform and educate viewers. Please be aware that the information provided may not be exhaustive or up-to-date. It is essential to verify any critical information from reliable sources. The creators of these videos are not responsible for any actions taken based on the content herein. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to our channel, where books come alive on screen. Get ready for 5-chapter wonders that inform, captivate, and spark your imagination. Join us in this literary journey where every chapter is an adventure. Bloody Roots: A Comprehensive History of the Blood Street Gang by Just Stories. Chapter 1: Origins and Turmoil, The Birth of the Bloods. In the sprawling metropolis of Los Angeles, amidst the sun-soaked streets and palm-lined boulevards, a turbulent chapter in American history was unfolding. It was here, in the late 1960s, that a new street gang would emerge, destined to make its mark on the city's landscape and beyond. This chapter delves into the tumultuous origins of the Bloods, tracing their roots back to a time of social unrest, discrimination, and a desperate search for identity. The mid-20th century was a time of great upheaval in the United States. Civil rights movements were challenging the deep-seated racism that plagued the nation, while economic disparities and police brutality were causing widespread frustration in impoverished communities. In this environment, a sense of belonging and protection became paramount, especially for young African Americans who felt marginalized and oppressed. It was against this backdrop that the precursor to the Bloods, known as the Baby Avenues, first emerged. These neighborhood groups provided a sense of camaraderie and safety in the face of adversity. They were not inherently violent, but they were born out of a need for mutual support and self-defense in an unforgiving world. As the 1960s gave way to the 1970s, Los Angeles saw a shift in the gang landscape. The Baby Avenues underwent a transformation, becoming the Bloods, adopting their distinctive red attire as a symbol of unity and strength. The catalyst for this transformation was the growing influence of another infamous gang, the Crips. The Bloods saw themselves as a necessary counterforce to the Crips, a means of protection against a burgeoning wave of violence and crime. Rivalry and conflict between the two gangs escalated, leading to a series of violent clashes. This period marked the climax of the Bloods' early history, as they fought to establish their presence and defend their neighborhoods from encroachment. As the years passed, the Bloods solidified their identity and organizational structure. They expanded beyond Los Angeles, establishing sets in other cities across the United States. Alongside this growth came increased scrutiny from law enforcement, as the Bloods' reputation for violence and criminal activity became well known. Despite the challenges and setbacks, the Bloods endured. Over time, they diversified their activities, engaging in criminal enterprises beyond mere territorial disputes. The gang became an intricate web of subgroups, each with its own hierarchy and rituals. The birth of the Bloods was a tumultuous chapter in the history of Los Angeles, shaped by the social, economic, and political forces of the era. From humble beginnings as neighborhood protectors to a nationwide network of sets, the Bloods' journey was marked by trials and tribulations. Their story is a testament to the resilience and complexity of gang culture in America, a narrative that continues to evolve to this day. As we delve deeper into the annals of the Bloods' history, we'll explore their expansion, their impact on communities, and the efforts made to address the challenges they pose. But for now, we've laid the groundwork for understanding how this notorious gang came into existence against the backdrop of a city and a nation in turmoil. Chapter 2: Bloodline Chronicles, Gang Expansion and Rivalry. As the Bloods solidified their presence on the streets of Los Angeles, a new chapter in their history was unfolding, one defined by both expansion and rivalry. In this chapter, we will journey through the tumultuous years when the Bloods spread their influence beyond their original neighborhoods, establishing themselves as a formidable force in the world of street gangs. Along the way, they would face fierce competition and confrontations that would shape their identity and reputation. The 1980s marked a period of rapid growth and territorial expansion for the Bloods. They continued to multiply and establish sets in various neighborhoods, effectively weaving a crimson thread across the city. It was during this time that they adopted a more organized structure, complete with leadership hierarchies and codes of conduct. However, with growth came rivalry. The competition between the Bloods and their arch-nemesis, the Crips, escalated to unprecedented levels. The streets of Los Angeles became a battleground as both gangs vied for control of lucrative drug territories and sought to assert dominance. The crescendo of this rivalry saw violence and bloodshed on a scale that shocked the nation. One of the defining moments of this chapter occurred in the early 1990s with the outbreak of the infamous Crips and Bloods War. This period was marked by a series of high-profile shootings and retaliatory attacks that shook the foundations of both gangs. Innocent bystanders often found themselves caught in the crossfire, leading to public outcry and demands for action. The climax of this tumultuous period was the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Triggered by the acquittal of police officers involved in the beating of Rodney King, the riots saw the Bloods and Crips temporarily set aside their differences to engage in collective acts of violence and looting. It was a moment that underscored the depth of frustration and anger simmering in the city's marginalized communities. In the wake of the violence and destruction of the early 90s, there was a growing realization that the cycle of gang rivalry was taking a devastating toll. Community leaders, law enforcement agencies, and even some gang members themselves began to question the senseless bloodshed. The resolution to this chapter came in the form of ceasefires and truces brokered between rival gangs, including the Bloods and Crips. The truce signaled a tentative step towards reducing violence, with some sets choosing to honor it. The Bloods, too, began to evolve. Some members sought alternatives to the gang life, contributing to community initiatives and working towards positive change. The chapter of Bloodline Chronicles illustrates the highs and lows of the Bloods' expansion and their tumultuous rivalry with the Crips. It's a story of growth, conflict, and, ultimately, the recognition that there must be a better way forward. In the chapters ahead, we will explore how the Bloods adapted to changing times, diversified their activities, and continued to leave an indelible mark on American gang culture. But for now, we've reached a turning point, one where the consequences of their expansion and rivalry began to weigh heavily on the collective conscience of both the Bloods and the communities they inhabited. Chapter 3: Bloodshed and Turf Wars, The Violent Years. The 1980s and early 1990s were a harrowing period for Los Angeles and, by extension, the Bloods. During these years, the city was caught in the grip of a wave of violence and chaos that would forever leave its mark. In this chapter, we delve deep into the heart of darkness, exploring the relentless bloodshed and brutal turf wars that gripped the city during these tumultuous years. As the Bloods expanded their influence, their territorial disputes with rival gangs, particularly the Crips, reached a fever pitch. The streets of Los Angeles became battlegrounds where neighborhood allegiances were tested through deadly confrontations. This period marked the crescendo of violence, with drive-by shootings, assaults, and murders becoming distressingly common. The drug trade further fueled the chaos. The Bloods, like other gangs, engaged in the illicit drug market, leading to conflicts over drug distribution and control of valuable street corners. Turf wars for drug territories escalated tensions, resulting in a cycle of revenge and retaliation. The climax of this dark chapter was epitomized by the infamous crack epidemic. The crack cocaine epidemic swept through impoverished neighborhoods, devastating communities and families. The Bloods found themselves both perpetrators and victims of this crisis, as they became deeply involved in drug trafficking. The crack epidemic fueled unprecedented levels of violence, as rival gangs fought for control of the lucrative drug trade. Drive-by shootings, turf battles, and the senseless loss of life became a grim daily reality. The city's residents were held hostage by the escalating violence, and the nation watched in horror as Los Angeles seemed on the brink of anarchy. Amid the chaos and destruction, voices of reason and resilience began to emerge. Community leaders, activists, and even some gang members themselves recognized the devastating toll that the violence was taking on their neighborhoods. Grassroots efforts to mediate conflicts and broker ceasefires started to gain momentum. Law enforcement agencies also took a more proactive stance, targeting gangs involved in drug trafficking and initiating anti-gang initiatives. The resolution to this chapter came in the form of a growing awareness that the violence was unsustainable and counterproductive. Communities began to unite against the shared enemy of violence, taking steps towards reclaiming their streets. The violent years were a harrowing chapter in the Blood's history, marked by senseless bloodshed and devastating turf wars. It serves as a stark reminder of the toll that gang violence takes on communities and individuals. In the chapters ahead, we will explore how the Bloods navigated these treacherous waters, adapted to changing circumstances, and found ways to evolve. This period of turmoil, though dark, also sowed the seeds for potential change, as communities and individuals rallied together to address the violence that had gripped their city for far too long. Chapter 4: The Streets Speak, Inside the Blood Subculture. The streets of Los Angeles are not only where the Bloods made their mark as a gang, they're also where a unique subculture began to take shape. In this chapter, we'll take a journey deep into the heart of the Blood subculture. We'll explore the language, rituals, and codes that define their world and give insight into the complex social fabric of the gang. From hand signs to colors, from initiation rites to gang hierarchies, we'll uncover the layers of meaning that make up this distinct subculture. Understanding the Blood subculture means deciphering a complex system of symbols and signs. One of the most recognizable aspects of their identity is the color red, which is prominently worn as a sign of affiliation. This choice of color is not arbitrary, it carries deep meaning within the subculture, symbolizing unity, strength, and resistance. Hand signs are another crucial element. The B sign, made by forming a C with the thumb and index finger, represents the Blood's affiliation, while their rivals, the Crips, use a similar gesture with a C shape. These signs are a means of communication and identification, not just within the gang but also with rival groups. Within the Blood subculture, initiation ceremonies are significant rites of passage. New members often undergo a process that can include committing crimes or acts of violence to prove their loyalty and dedication to the gang. These rituals serve to solidify bonds and instill a sense of belonging. Hierarchy is also a central theme. The gang operates under a strict chain of command, with leaders at the top overseeing various sets or cliques. Respect for authority and adherence to the gang's codes are essential. Disloyalty or perceived disrespect can lead to severe consequences, including violence or expulsion from the gang. As we delve deeper into the Blood subculture, it becomes evident that this world is not static. Over time, elements of the subculture have evolved and adapted to changing circumstances. While the core symbols and rituals remain, the meaning attached to them has shifted for some members. In recent years, there has been an emerging trend of former Bloods members renouncing their affiliation and working to break free from the subculture's grip. Organizations and programs aimed at gang intervention and prevention have provided a path for individuals to distance themselves from the gang and its subculture. The Blood subculture is a multifaceted aspect of their identity, filled with symbols, rituals, and codes that shape their world. As we conclude this chapter, we've uncovered the layers of meaning that define this subculture, shedding light on the intricate web of connections and the challenges it poses for individuals and communities. In the chapters ahead, we will explore the ways in which the Bloods have continued to adapt and change, both as a gang and within their subculture. We'll also delve into efforts to address the challenges posed by the subculture and provide individuals with alternatives to the path of gang life. Chapter 5: Turning the Tide, Law Enforcement and Community Efforts. The story of the Bloods and their impact on communities is not only one of conflict and violence, but also of resilience and collective action. In this chapter, we'll explore the efforts made by law enforcement agencies and communities to turn the tide against the influence of the Bloods. From innovative policing strategies to community-based initiatives, this chapter highlights the various ways in which individuals and organizations came together to address the challenges posed by the gang. The late 20th century saw law enforcement agencies grappling with the rise of gang violence. In response, they developed specialized units dedicated to combating gang activity. These units used intelligence-driven policing to identify and target key gang members, often focusing on disrupting criminal enterprises and dismantling leadership structures. Community-based efforts also began to gain momentum. Organizations and community leaders recognized the need for intervention programs that could provide alternatives to the allure of gang life. Mentorship programs, after-school activities, and job training initiatives were among the strategies employed to steer at-risk youth away from the gang culture. One of the most significant moments in the effort to combat gang violence was the adoption of the community policing model. This approach emphasized collaboration between law enforcement agencies and local communities. Police officers worked closely with residents to identify problems and develop tailored solutions, shifting the focus from punitive measures to prevention and community engagement. The climax of these combined efforts came with the development of gang intervention programs. These initiatives recognized that many gang members wanted a way out but were trapped by circumstances and peer pressure. Gang intervention workers, often former gang members themselves, played a crucial role in mediating conflicts, providing support, and offering pathways to leave the gang life behind. As the years passed, the collaborative approach between law enforcement and communities began to show signs of success. While challenges remained, crime rates in some gang-affected neighborhoods declined, and the sense of empowerment among residents grew. Gang intervention programs saw individuals leaving the gang life and finding opportunities for personal growth and development. The last chapter's resolution is a testament to the power of collaboration and community-driven solutions. It showcases how a united front, comprising law enforcement, community leaders, and individuals willing to change, can make a significant impact in the battle against gang violence. The journey through Turning the Tide reflects the ongoing struggle to combat the influence of the Bloods and other gangs. It demonstrates that the path to change is often long and fraught with challenges, but also that it is not impossible. By highlighting the efforts of law enforcement and communities to address this complex issue, we find hope and inspiration for a future where the tide is turned definitively against the grip of gang violence. Thank you for diving into the world of words with us. If you had a blast exploring this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share the bookish love with your friends, and make sure to subscribe for more amazing 5-chapter adventures.